Next story. You know, the unsteady relationship between the federal government and organized labor in our country appears to have hit a rock, if you ask me. Now, a communique jointly signed by the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Ajaero, and the General Secretary, Comrade Emmanuel Ugboaja, indicates that the NLC may be embarking on a nationwide strike beginning from Monday, August 14. Now, coming barely 24 hours after its decision to suspend its previously planned nationwide protest, tongues are wagging. Well, we now know that the federal government, through the National Industrial Court, is planning to take labor leaders to court for contempt of a fact. Emeka, these are times that try men's souls.
Yeah, but I wonder what the Federal Ministry of Justice hopes to gain from that. Because if a matter has gone beyond the regular, beyond the expected levels to the president, I think people should sometimes allow some of these things work. It's not in every industrial crisis that the president of a nation, I mean, talking about Nigeria, intervenes. You know, you saw how aloof Buhari was with a number of these things. But by saying you will take them to court, that means you will go back to the industrial court to report them. But don't forget that the decision of the industrial court can also be appealed. It's not the Supreme Court. So when in the midst of crisis, people are suffering. There's no doubt. The removal of subsidy has impacted negatively on so many people. So it makes sense to read the mood of the nation that since, okay, the president has intervened, and even Labour actually said, yes, he made certain commitments. I think they even used the word firm commitments for that court refinery by December, so. And we've seen even state governments moving to implement some of the things promised by the president. For instance, the governor of Borno State, Zulum, has distributed food and money and other materials to people of the state. You've seen some states have even increased the minimum wage. So all of these things put together, I think if Labour said, okay, they'll give the president some time to sort out these things with the governors and all that, then what is the Federal Ministry of Justice after? Why try to hit up the polity with this kind of a thing? There's like somebody, who was it that was saying that when a lawyer tells you, okay, go to court, we will go to court, does that lawyer tell you that he will ensure you win? What if you report them and the court throws out your election? What have you done? I think it is clear that some people definitely don't want things to work out in the favor of Nigerians. I will appeal to them, to those in the Federal Ministry of Justice. Drop this game you're playing. Let the process of negotiation, let it continue. Because some part of the negotiations have to do with the federal government, some are at the level of the state government and the local government. So all these things also, some of these things will also involve extra budgetary allocation. So maybe there will have to be maybe the government will have to talk of sending a supplementary budget to the National Assembly to cater for some of these things, including the promised new minimum wage. So I think let's allow an atmosphere that makes things work out for all of us.
August 14 is a little over a week, and I think there's still time to meet somewhere in the middle.
Yes. I have not seen the order of the industrial court.
Okay.
Restraining the NLC from embarking on any industrial action, because that is what they are saying, that the order says they should not embark on any industrial action, and if that was the case, protests that takes people away from their jobs is an industrial action. Yeah. But I've not seen the judgment. I don't know whether that's exactly what's contained in that judgment. But that's what Mrs. Jadi Agba, the Solicitor General, is saying, that the courts restrained them from taking any industrial action. So in this case, this protest, some people call it a strike, but in the real sense of the word, it was just a protest to register their anger at what had happened. Because if it was a strike, we would have seen Labour try to even enforce it by going to the Federal Secretariat, for example, to lock the gates, and get their people to comply. But just as Emeka said, what we want to see is the resolution of this matter without a resort to extreme action.
Yeah.
I've said repeatedly that there was no need for some of the fighting words that Ajaero was using, you know, in the days leading to this strike, telling the people to be ready for a fight, calling the government irresponsible, saying that he would not be part of any meeting again because they had made up their minds about what to do. That is a waste of time to sit with them. And every time you say this, the next day they will see you are in a meeting. Because when you choose not to enter the meeting, TUC will go.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be undercut. So you just make sure that you are, even when he said we will never meet with them until they reverse the subsidy decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
We still saw him the next day meeting with them. So what makes sense at this time, because to imagine that we'll go back to the subsidy era is foolish. We will not go back to the subsidy era because the subsidy era was moving Nigeria close to fiscal perdition, fiscal death. That was what it was moving us to. We had reached a point where we could not pay our bills. Even China, we wanted to take a loan from China, and China said, enough. This one we will not give. We were servicing debt with about 93% of our revenue. And the debt that you are servicing actually is not the principal that you are paying for.
Yeah, but
you are paying the interest on the on the loan. Yet it had reached the point that 93% of your receipts, of your earnings, was going to servicing them. Where will you find the money? States were heavily indebted, because when we talk about the quantum of the nation's debt, is actually not the federal government alone. Yeah. A lot of these states were piling on debt because they could not pay their bills, literally. Some couldn't even pay salary. Some couldn't do the normal things that states should do. But we are in a situation now that even states and the federal government agreed to bank more than ₦1 trillion.
Yeah.
Because what came to them by way of the distributable revenue from FAC was 1.955 trillion. Yeah. And they decided to share just 907. When was the last time we had this kind of opportunity? Except if we are sharing excess crude and all that. So now states will be able to find the money to spend on infrastructure to even address these pains that our people are going through, because what we used to spend on subsidy, we now have it and we can spend on fixing infrastructure, solving those problems that we had faced over the years. So for me, going back to the pre-subsidy era, because it's part of the demands of NLC, if you go into a meeting asking for that, you are wasting your time, because nobody will agree, except you want this impasse to linger. Nobody will agree to go back to the pre-subsidy, pre-subsidy removal era.
But in the interest of the public, there must be a meeting of ground somewhere in the middle.
Yes, yeah. I believe that, okay, the president made some pledges to them, and they decided, okay, let's go back home. And of course, the Senate also said, give us 1 week. Wow. Let's look at all of this. Yeah. They want the refineries to work. The president gave firm assurances that by December, the Port Harcourt refineries will come on stream. We have 2 refineries there. They will come on stream. But Nigerians also need to know that those refineries coming on stream will not necessarily translate to cheap fuel. It's just marginal. It's just marginal reduction.
I thought I heard something like 70%.
No. How can it be 70?
No,
just 70 naira per
70
liter.
naira.
70 naira.
70 naira
Difference.
is what will save.
Yeah.
That's what will save.
70 naira.
What will help us, what will push us to cheaper fuel prices? One, if this man in Russia,
Putin?
If Putin ends the senseless war that he went into,
yes,
because he's now stuck. He started the war since March last year. He thought it was something that he could just finish. But the West got Ukraine to dig in, provided weapons and all that. Now he's stuck. This is a war that will last, will go on and on and on. In fact, Ukraine now has capacity to even operate in Russian territory. So that's not
the other way.
The fuel prices went up when that war began because Russia is a big diesel producer. You know, so there's no way that if anything happens to such a big oil producer that it won't affect the whole world. That's the way that market responds. So if the war ends, the price will go down. You know, there was a time that it went down, I think around 2016. It went down to the point that Nigeria didn't even need to pay subsidy.
I think $38 or something.
It came down, it even came lower. There was a time it was 26.
Yes.
You know?
In the international market.
For me, I'm praying that it will go down.
Yes.
So that it will get to a point that Nigerians can afford. I'm not pinning my hopes on Dangote refinery. I don't know when the refinery will come on stream. I read what the TUC president was saying, that the Dangote refinery cannot do 50% production until around December this year. We didn't hear that it would take that long. But this is Nigeria, where people make promises and then you wait for them to fulfill that promise, and they tell you can wait till Jesus Christ returns. So this is...
okay then, Jide, let's take a breather now. We'll go on a commercial break. We should be back, but please stay with us.